Have you ever felt like you just, don't quite fit into the modern world?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Like you're constantly playing a role in a society that is just utterly obsessed with, like, productivity, small talk, and superficial entertainment.
Yeah, the whole rat race.
Exactly. And if you've ever felt that profound sense of alienation, that creeping suspicion that everyone else got an instruction manual for life
Hmm.
that you somehow just completely missed.
Like they're all in on a secret.
Yes.
Hmm.
If you feel that, then you are going to deeply resonate with the concept of the Steppenwolf. Welcome back to DFC Books.
It's a great topic today.
It really is. But before we get fully immersed in today's deep dive, I want to ask you directly, yes, you listening right now, to drop into the comments and leave us any book requests you'd like to see covered in a future deep dive.
We love seeing those.
We really do. We're always looking for that next fascinating text to explore together. And, well, your recommendations really drive this show.
Definitely. And the text we're exploring today is, it's monumental. Yeah, we are embarking on this extensive, really profound exploration of Hermann Hesse's absolute masterpiece, Steppenwolf.
I'm so excited for this.
Me too. Our mission today is to unpack this incredibly complex, sort of surreal and deeply philosophical journey of a man who is violently torn between his civilized intellectual humanity and his wild instinctual nature.
What I find so absolutely captivating about diving into these sources is how they blend this incredibly gritty, almost painful psychological realism with absolute logic-defying magic.
Right, it really shifts gears on you.
It does. It's like, it's as if you sit down to read a standard, slightly depressing biography of a middle-aged intellectual experiencing a midlife crisis.
Which it is, at first.
Exactly. And then without warning, the floor just drops out and the narrative turns into an absolute fever dream.
That is exactly the experience Hess trying to curate for the reader.
It's wild.
But it's crucial to set the thematic stage right from the beginning. Like, this text is not merely a character study of one lonely, depressed man sitting in a rented room.
No, it's way bigger than that.
Right. It is a diagnosis of what the sources explicitly called the sickness of the times.
The sickness of the times, yeah.
It's an exploration of the neurosis of an entire generation that's just caught between two eras. The protagonist, Harry Haller, isn't suffering because he is weak or, incompetent.
He's actually brilliant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He is suffering because he is acutely sensitive to the hypocrisy, the mechanized violence, and the spiritual emptiness of the modern age. He feels the tragedy of his era in his very bones.
Right. And before we even get into Harry Haller's own mind, the book kind of forces us to look at him from the outside.
Which is a brilliant structural move.
It really is. We actually start the narrative with a preface, and it's written by the nephew of the landlady, where Harry rents a room.
Yeah, the nephew.
It's entirely the observer's view. And I was wondering about that structural choice, actually. Like, why start there? Why not just jump straight into Harry's brilliant, tortured head?
Well, because we need a baseline of normality to fully appreciate the depth of Harry's abnormality.
Oh, I see. We need the contrast.
Exactly, we need contrast. The nephew who narrates this preface, he represents the healthy bourgeois perspective.
The normal guy.
Right. He is a man of business, a man of routine, order, conventional morality. He is fascinated by Harry, but he also instinctively shrinks from him.
Like a physical reaction.
Yes. He openly admits that his first reaction to Harry was repugnance. He describes it as the instinct of the healthy shrinking from someone who is ailing in the spirit.
Wow.
It's almost an animalistic reaction to someone who carries the scent of, existential decay.
That's so intense. And contrasting the nephew, we have the aunt, the landlady.
Yes, the aunt is fascinating.
Let's really look at her character, because she's this incredibly warm, motherly figure who takes Harry in. She represents all the warmth, the strict order, and the quiet respectability of the middle-class world.
Her whole life is built on that order.
Right. Her house is this sanctuary of ticking clocks and polished furniture. And into this perfectly ordered, spotless middle-class sanctuary walks Harry Haller, the Steppenwolf.
The ultimate outsider.
Literally. And he's nearly 50 years old. He's in terrible physical health. He suffers from gout. He complains of a bad stomach. And he gets these wicked, paralyzing headaches rooted right behind his eyeballs.
He's just falling apart.
He really is. He is fiercely independent, obviously highly educated, but deeply, deeply depressed and isolated. He shows up on her doorstep with 2 trunks and a massive case of books, looking like a bewildered alien from another continent.
And if we look at this opening section, the truly defining event, the most important event that sets the entire psychological stage for the book, happens the moment he arrives.
When he walks through the door.
Right. He steps through the glazed door of the lodging house, sniffs the air, and actually praises the smell of the house.
He loves this smell.
He does. He notes that it smells of cleanliness, turpentine, and good order. He specifically stops on the stairs to admire a plant and Ericaria sitting in a spotlessly clean little vestibule.
See, this is the great contradiction of Harry Huller.
It's his entire paradox.
Because he claims, loudly and often, to absolutely despise the bourgeois class. He hates their mediocrity, their contentment, their flat, normal lives.
He thinks they're totally shallow.
Exactly. He thinks they are a fat and prosperous brood of mediocrity who basically hide from the great tragic extremes of human existence.
Right.
And yet, when he has the choice of where to live, he specifically chooses to reside in a highly respectable, spotlessly clean bourgeois house.
It's so ironic.
It is. He doesn't go live in a bohemian slum. He doesn't live in an artist colony. He lives here. And this little Ericaria plant on the stairs, it kind of serves as his anchor.
Yes, an anchor.
It's an anchor to a world he cannot bring himself to participate in, but that he still secretly, almost desperately reveres.
Precisely. I mean, he calls the little vestibule with the plant a quiet little garden of order, and he rejoices that such things still exist in a chaotic world.
Even though he mocks that world.
Exactly. He admits that it reminds him of his own mother, who was a middle-class woman. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Harry is trapped in a purgatory of his own making.
Right.
He has the towering intellect and the wild, untamable spirit that puts him far outside of conventional society, but he still possesses a bourgeois soul that craves the comfort, the safety, and the soothing smell of turpentine and floor wax.
He's totally split.
He is suspended between two worlds, fundamentally belonging to neither.
It makes me think of that one brilliant, overly intellectual friend we all have who refuses to just enjoy a simple dinner party.
Oh, we all know one.
You know the exact type. They sit there with a glass of wine, loudly critiquing the entire structure of modern capitalism, dissecting the ethical compromises of the agricultural industry, all while eating the host's expensive hors d'oeuvres.
Yes.
It's exhausting to be around them, yet undeniably, you know their observations are factually correct.
That's the worst part. They're right.
Exactly. But they are completely alienated from the simple, thoughtless joys of life because their brain just won't turn off. They crave the warmth of the dinner party, but their intellect forces them to destroy it.
That is a perfect modern analogy, and that alienation is agonizing for Harry. He isn't enjoying his superiority. He is suffocating under it.
Suffocating is a good word for it.
Which brings us to the transition into Harry's personal records. Having seen him from the outside as this quiet, eccentric, slightly intimidating lodger, we now step directly into his personal, agonizing daily existence.
And it is bleak.
Very bleak.
The narrative shifts, and the most important event of this next section is an evening where Harry is wandering the wet, foggy streets of the city. He's miserable. He just had one of his lukewarm days.
The dreaded lukewarm days.
And the text goes into agonizing detail about how much he hates these days. He says he would rather feel the devil burn in him than endure the warmth of a well-heated room.
He wants the extremes.
Right. He actually prefers acute physical agony to this painless, contented boredom. Let's really dig into this, because I think a lot of people today experience this without having a name for it.
Yes, the concept of the lukewarm days is one of Hesse's most piercing critiques of modern life.
It's so relatable.
Harry argues that pain, at the very least, makes him feel alive. It requires endurance, you know? It demands a response from the soul.
Pain is real.
Exactly. The lukewarm days, on the other hand, are the ultimate symptom of the bourgeois compromise. It's a life engineered to be without extreme sorrow, but as a direct result, it is also without extreme joy.
It's just a flat.
It is the spiritual equivalent of a perfectly climate-controlled office building where you never feel the freezing wind, but you never feel the heat of the sun either.
Oh, man. It's the daily commute, the small talk at the water cooler, the endless scrolling on a phone to pass the time. It's kind of toxic numbness.
That's a great way to put it.
And as he wanders the darkest alleys of the old town, actively seeking some kind of friction to break this numbness, his rigid reality finally begins to crack. He sees something completely impossible.
Yes. Amidst the wet, mundane stones of the city, he sees fleeting, illuminated letters dancing on an old stone wall.
Like a neon sign almost.
Right, and the letters spell out a bizarre advertisement, magic theater for madmen only.
Harry is completely transfixed by this. He waits in the mud, freezing, hoping the letters will come back. He tries a door on the wall, but there's no handle. It's solid wall.
It vanishes.
It just vanishes. But later, in that same dark alley, the most pivotal event of this sequence occurs when he chases down a weary peddler carrying a signboard. He buys a small, poorly printed booklet from him.
The treatise.
Yes, and this booklet is what launches us into the absolute philosophical core of the story.
Right. And just to touch on the magic theater, it symbolizes the invitation to the unconscious mind. The phrase "for madmen only" is not an insult. It is a direct, provocative challenge to Harry, and by extension, to you, the listener.
It's a call to action.
Exactly. To truly understand oneself, to break out of the prison of the hyper-rational intellect and the mundane world, one must abandon conventional, sane logic.
Because sanity is a trap.
In this specific philosophical context, sanity is just the agreed-upon illusion of the herd. It's the rule book for the lukewarm days. Madness, however, is the terrifying, liberating truth of the inner self.
Wow. So he takes this booklet back to his room. It is titled The Treatise on the Steppenwolf. And it is basically a psychological mirror handed directly to Harry by the universe.
It knows him perfectly.
It really does. We transition here from Harry's physical wandering through the wet streets to his philosophical unmasking in his armchair. He puts on his glasses, starts reading, and the most important event of this section is his realization that his entire worldview is completely understood by some unknown author.
Which is shocking enough.
Right. But more shockingly, he realizes that his worldview is fundamentally flawed. Let's break down what the treatise actually says. First, it tackles what it calls the wolf versus man illusion.
So, Harry has always operated under the belief that he is split cleanly in two.
Just two halves.
Yes. There is the man, which contains his love for Mozart, classical poetry, high ideals, refined culture, and the spirit.
The intellectual side.
Right. And then there is the wolf, which is savage, instinctual, isolated, cynical, and hates all human conventions.
The animal side.
Exactly. And when the man has a noble, compassionate thought, the wolf bares its teeth and mocks the absurdity and hypocrisy of human posturing. But when the wolf wants to be wild, free, and destructive, the man lies in ambush and shames him, calling him a brute and a beast.
So they just cancel each other out.
Yes, they are in a state of constant, paralyzing civil war. Every action is vetoed by the other half.
But the treatise points out something brilliant about Harry's specific brand of suffering. It introduces this unique concept of the suicide personality.
This is a crucial concept.
Now, the text makes it very clear that it doesn't just mean people who actually end their lives. It describes a specific psychological archetype. And for this type of person, the idea of suicide is actually what keeps them alive.
It sounds paradoxical, I know.
Yeah, hold on. I really want to make sure we explain the mechanics of this because it does sound completely paradoxical.
Yeah.
How does thinking about death make someone want to live? Or at least, help them endure life?
Well, it's a brilliant psychological insight into the mechanism of control. When a person feels trapped by suffering, whether it's the physical pain of Harry's gout or the existential pain of his loneliness, the worst part is the feeling of powerlessness.
Like you have no say in the matter.
Exactly. The feeling that the pain is infinite and imposed upon them. But for the suicide personality, knowing that the emergency exit is available returns agency to them.
Ah, I see.
If Harry knows he has a razor in his room and he has the power to end his life at any moment, then every day he doesn't use it becomes a choice.
He's choosing to stay.
Yes. He is no longer a victim of his suffering. He is choosing to endure it for one more day. The thought of death acts as a psychological safety valve. It gives him the illusion of profound strength and ultimate control.
Wow. It's like carrying a parachute on a terrifyingly turbulent flight.
Perfect analogy.
You don't necessarily want to jump out into the freezing air, but just knowing you have the ripcord stops you from having a total panic attack about the turbulence.
Exactly. But the treatise doesn't stop there. It then analyzes how a Steppenwolf like Harry relates to the bourgeois world. We discussed the Araucaria plant earlier, and how Harry is tethered to the middle class.
Right.
The treatise explains that the bourgeoisie does not survive through greatness or high ideals or immense suffering. It survives by dampening extremes.
By keeping things lukewarm.
Yes. It absorbs outsiders and smooths their rough edges. The bourgeoisie thrives on the lukewarm middle. So for a volatile Steppenwolf like Harry to survive in this bourgeois world without destroying himself or being destroyed by society, he must develop one specific tool.
And that tool is humor.
Humor? But not just telling jokes.
Right. And not just telling jokes at a bar. The treatise defines humor as this almost divine imaginary realm. It is the ability to live in the world as if it were not the world. To respect the law, but to stand completely above it in your mind.
To be detached.
Exactly. To possess things as though you possessed nothing. It's the ultimate coping mechanism for the brilliant, afflicted outsider. It's a way of looking at the absurdity of society and, instead of letting it make you angry and bitter, allowing it to amuse you.
Yes. True humor in this sense is transcendent. It is the only way to bridge the gap between his high ideals and the miserable reality of daily life.
It's a survival skill.
And then the treatise delivers its ultimate revelation, the fatal flaw in Harry's logic. He believes he's two things, a civilized man and a savage wolf. The treatise calls this a hopelessly childish, primitive simplification.
Childish, that's a blow to his ego.
It really is. It argues that the unified ego is a total delusion. Man is not two souls. He's an onion made of hundreds of layers, a texture of thousands of threads.
The thousand souls metaphor, I want to spend some time on this because it is staggering.
It's the core of the book.
The treatise argues that Harry is brutally limiting his own vast, complex potential by shoving his entire existence into just two tiny boxes. If he does something polite or artistic, he labels it the man. If he feels something wild or angry, he labels it the wolf.
He's ignoring everything else.
Right. He completely ignores the fox, the dragon, the bird of paradise, the frightened child, the passionate artist, the clown, all these other identities that live inside him.
He suppresses them all.
It reminds me of how people today take a personality test, get assigned 4 letters, and suddenly that is their entire identity.
Oh, that happens all the time.
Like, oh, I can't go to that party, I'm an introvert. We put ourselves in these tiny psychological cages because it's easier to understand the terrifying reality that we are chaotic, fluid beings capable of infinite reactions depending on the context.
That is a very astute connection. We crave simplicity. To admit that we contain 1,000 conflicting souls is to admit that we are not entirely in control of who we are.
It's scary to realize that.
It is. For Harry, the man and wolf dichotomy is a tragedy, yes, but it is a comfortable tragedy. It's a neat, dramatic narrative, he tells himself.
It makes him feel special.
Exactly. And the treatise shatters that narrative. It tells him his suffering is largely self-inflicted by his refusal to acknowledge the vast, confusing multitude of his own inner world.
I have to say, if you are finding this breakdown of the thousand souls metaphor as mind-expanding as I am, please take a quick second right now to subscribe to DFC Books.
It really helps us out.
It really supports us and helps us keep bringing you deep philosophical dives just like this one. So, okay, Harry has read this treatise. He has been given the ultimate psychological theory to cure his despair. He basically sees the Matrix.
He's got the blueprint now.
But, as often happens with profound intellectual insights, reading the theory in an armchair is easy. Applying it to the messy, irritating reality of life is entirely different.
Indeed. And the very next night, his new mindset is put to the ultimate test. The most important, really the most disastrous event of this section is a dinner party he attends at the home of a professor.
Oh, this dinner party. Let's examine the characters in this conflict. The professor is an old academic friend of Harry's, and he represents everything Harry despises about stagnant, unthinking intellectualism.
He's the establishment.
Exactly. The professor is a blind patriot. During the war, he supported the military, and he still reads jingoistic, militarist newspapers. He is the epitome of the educated bourgeois who uses his intellect to justify the comfortable status quo rather than question it. He doesn't seek truth. He seeks validation of his own prejudices.
And Harry arrives at the house already feeling nauseous, regretting his decision to try and participate in normal society.
He's already on edge.
Right. He is trying to play the polite role, but the tension is unbearable. And then he sees it. The catalyst for the explosion. A portrait of Goethe, the great German poet, sitting on the professor's table.
And the artist of this portrait has completely prettified Goethe.
Sanitized him completely.
They've given him a respectable bourgeois makeover. He looks like a charming, distinguished old gentleman fit to adorn a drawing room. The portrait completely strips away the elemental force, the wild passion, and the deep, tragic suffering that Harry knows the real Goethe experienced.
It's an insult to the reality of the man.
Exactly. I really want to frame this for the listener. Have you ever been absolutely enraged by a piece of corporate art? Or maybe you've seen a raw, revolutionary historical quote slapped onto a sanitized, pastel, inspirational poster in a corporate break room, and it made your blood boil because you knew it completely betrayed the dangerous truth of the original message.
That feeling of cheapness.
Yes. That is exactly how Harry feels looking at this portrait. It is the domestication of genius.
His reaction is visceral, and you've perfectly captured why. It's not merely an aesthetic disagreement, it's an existential insult. The professor is using a sanitized version of Goethe to make himself feel cultured without having to actually engage with Goethe's terrifying depths.
It's totally fake.
Right. Harry tries to be polite, to use that humor the treatise suggested, but the Steppenwolf inside him is howling.
He can't hold it in.
Then the professor brings up a newspaper article attacking a traitorous, unpatriotic writer named Haller, completely failing to realize he is speaking to the author himself.
Oh, it's so awkward.
At that moment, Harry snaps. The pressure cooker explodes. He savagely insults the Goethe portrait, insults his host's complacency, and flees into the night.
It's a complete disaster. He realizes in that moment that he is completely, utterly severed from conventional society. There's no going back. The bridge is burned.
The final straw.
He wanders the streets in mortal dread. He is terrified of returning to his room because he knows what is waiting for him there, his razor. The suicide personality's safety valve is no longer just an idea. He has decided, with absolute finality, to go home and cut his throat. He's done with the struggle.
This is the darkest point of the narrative. He is at the absolute end of his rope, but terrified of the final act, he delays.
Still dragging his feet.
Fleeing from death, he wanders into an unfamiliar, distant, working-class suburb. He hears the raw, steamy, rhythmic sounds of live jazz music coming from a dance hall called the Black Eagle. And completely out of character, he goes inside.
And this leads to the most pivotal encounter of his entire life. The savior at the Black Eagle. He sits down at a table, exhausted, looking exactly like a man who's about to go home and hang himself. And a young woman approaches him. This is Hermione.
Hermione is a masterpiece of characterization, and understanding her is essential to understanding the rest of the book.
She's so important.
Physically, she is a pale, firm-faced young dancer. But her profound psychological significance lies in the fact that she is a mirror to Harry. From a Jungian perspective, she represents his anima, the unconscious feminine aspect of the male psyche.
Oh, interesting.
She is boyish. She actually reminds Harry of his childhood friend Herman, hence the name Herman. Yet she is deeply maternal. And above all, she is utterly commanding. She doesn't pity him in his misery. She takes charge.
I love this interaction. She treats him like a toddler.
She really does.
He's this 50-year-old, brooding, highly esteemed intellectual, and she literally takes off his glasses, wipes them clean, orders him a drink, and tells him to stop being a baby about the Goethe portrait.
She just shuts it down.
She completely deflates his high-minded, tragic view of his own suffering. She basically says, so some foolish professor has a bad painting. Why does that make you want to die? You are taking yourself far too seriously.
She cuts through his intellectual defenses instantly because she operates on instinct and emotional intelligence, which Harry has neglected, and then they make a pact. Yes, Hermione understands Harry's despair perfectly. She tells him she has broken through his isolation. She promises to teach him how to live, how to dance, how to smile, how to engage with the physical world.
She's going to be his life coach, basically.
Pretty much. But she extracts a terrifying promise in return. Harry must learn to obey her every command without question, and her final command, well, will be for him to kill her.
Hold on, I'm completely lost on this, and I have to push back here. Why would her ultimate goal be her own murder? That doesn't sound like enlightenment or psychological integration. That sounds like a clinical psychological complex.
It's very dark.
What is the actual logic behind this pact? She's going to go through all the trouble of teaching him to enjoy life, only so he can stab her.
It is a bizarre and shocking pact, but it reveals the dual nature of Hermione and why she is Harry's perfect mirror. On the surface, she operates entirely in the frivolous world of jazz, bars, fashion, and pleasure. She seems like a creature of the moment.
Right, totally superficial.
But underneath, she possesses what she calls a dimension too many. She is just as much an outsider as Harry. She sees through the shallowness, the impending political doom, and the spiritual emptiness of the world just as clearly as he does.
So she's faking her contentment.
Completely. Her response has just been different from his. While Harry retreated into books and isolation, Hermione mastered the surface of the world. However, mastering a world you despise leaves you empty.
Wow, yeah.
She harbors a deep internal desire for death, for eternity, for release from the game. She needs Harry to kill her because she wants to die at the hands of someone who truly understands her, someone who possesses her same depth. It is about ultimate mastery over her own fate.
So they need each other.
She needs Harry to kill her just as much as Harry needs her to bring him back to life. It is a symbiotic, tragic exchange.
That is incredibly dark, but it makes a twisted kind of sense when you realize there are two halves of the same coin.
Yeah.
So the pact is sealed. Under Hermione's strict, uncompromising orders, Harry's rigid, intellectual life is systematically dismissed.
He's going back to school.
This brings us to his re-education and the awakening of his senses. He literally has to learn the foxtrot. He is forced to buy a gramophone, which he previously thought of as a demonic machine destroying music.
He hated gramophones.
He despised them. But the most important event of this section of his training is when Hermione literally smuggles another woman, Maria, into Harry's bed while he is sleeping.
Maria is the catalyst for Harry's awakening to physical love and the pure innocence of the senses. She is a beautiful, light-hearted young woman who lives entirely for love, luxury, and pleasure.
She's totally unburdened.
Yes, she isn't burdened by philosophy, politics, or existential dread. To Harry's old way of thinking, she would be considered shallow and frivolous.
But she teaches him something profound. She teaches Harry that sensory experiences aren't trivial distractions from the real intellectual work.
They are valid in themselves.
A perfectly cooked meal, a beautifully executed dance step, the specific perfume a woman wears, the texture of a silk pillow. These things possess their own pure artistic depth. Harry, the snobby intellectual, had always sneered at the physical world. Maria shows him the profound beauty in the fleeting moment. She roots him in his own body.
And this awakening is furthered and complicated by the introduction of Pablo.
Oh, such a cool character.
Pablo is the beautiful, exotic jazz saxophonist who plays at the clubs Hermione frequents. To Harry's old eyes, Pablo appears to be a superficial, spoiled demigod of love who only cares about playing popular dance tunes, flirting with women, and rolling cigarettes.
Harry tries to just dismiss him.
He tries to categorize him as a simpleton.
But Pablo has a whole philosophy of his own, and he completely outmaneuvers Harry. Harry tries to engage Pablo in deep, melancholic conversations about Mozart, the metaphysics of art, and the tragedy of modern music. But Pablo shuts it down.
He won't play that game.
He refuses to engage in intellectual posturing. Pablo argues that a catchy shimmy or a foxtrot that makes a tired, overworked factory worker smile, tap her feet, and forget her troubles for 10 minutes is doing far more immediate good in the world than the dusty classical symphony that nobody truly feels anymore.
It is a profound clash of value systems. Harry worships the monumental, the eternal, the tragic, the difficult. Exactly. Pablo worships the immediate, the joyous, the functional. Pablo's music is a service to humanity. It brings them back to their bodies and gives them communal joy. He doesn't care if it won't be remembered in 100 years. It is needed right now.
I want to expand on this because it's such a relevant debate today. It makes me think of the classic film bro versus the blockbuster movie.
Oh, that's a perfect comparison.
Right. Imagine someone who has only ever watched dense, tragic, black and white foreign films. They pride themselves on understanding cinema as high art. Suddenly, they are dragged to a massive summer blockbuster superhero movie on opening night.
You're probably miserable at first.
Totally. At first, they sit there with their arms crossed, appalled by the CGI, the explosions, and the people eating popcorn. But then they look around. They see a theater full of hundreds of people cheering at the screen, smiling, crying, completely transported away from their daily struggles, mortgages, and anxieties.
It's an experience.
Exactly. And the film snob has to realize you cannot dismiss this. Joy itself, pure, unpretentious, unadulterated joy, is a valid and necessary form of art. It serves a vital human function.
That realization is the exact hurdle Harry is trying to clear. He is learning to dismantle his rigid hierarchy of value, where the spirit is high and sacred and the flesh, or the popular, is low and vulgar.
It's all connected.
He is learning that the 1,000 souls within him include the capacity for simple, unironic pleasure. This intensive training with Hermine, Maria, and Pablo all culminates in the ultimate test of his new worldview, the fancy dress ball.
The masked ball. This sequence is incredible. It's the grand finale of his real-world experiences before things get completely surreal.
It's a huge set piece.
The most important symbolic event here is the moment Harry arrives at the massive, chaotic venue and loses his cloakroom check.
The loss of the cloakroom ticket is highly symbolic. It represents losing his identity.
He literally loses his ticket out.
Right. It is losing his literal ticket back to his normal life, his apartment, and his isolated, brooding self. Without it, he cannot leave. He is forced to fully surrender to the intoxication of the massive crowd.
The scene is wildly surreal and labyrinthine. There are dozens of rooms, different bands playing everywhere, thousands of people in costumes. He wanders around feeling out of place at first, until he descends into the basement, which has been decorated as hell, where a frantic devil orchestra is playing.
He's going deep into the underworld.
He really is, and he is just swept up in this current of humanity.
And here we see the fluidity of identity that the treatise promised in the Thousand Souls metaphor. He finds Hermine, but she is dressed flawlessly as a young boy, as Hermann.
Full circle.
They dance together, and they actually playfully compete to seduce other women at the ball. It's a complete blurring of gender, sexual orientation, and conventional boundaries. Harry is slipping out of his rigid categorization.
He's loosening up.
Later, Hermine disappears and returns as a black pierrette, the ultimate, alluring object of his newly awakened desire.
But the true climax of the ball, the moment of profound psychological breakthrough, is when Harry experiences the absolute dissolution of his ego.
This is the peak experience.
It happens when the orchestra plays a popular sweeping hit song called Yearning. Harry isn't just Harry the isolated Steppenwolf anymore. He is dancing with the crowd, and he feels he is a literal part of everyone in the room.
He merges with them.
His smile is the smile of the crowd. His sweat is the sweat of the dancers. He finally experiences the unthinking, oceanic, ecstatic joy of the herd. The boundary between his internal, painful isolation and the external world completely collapses.
It is a moment of profound ecstasy, a spiritual peak. But it is still only a prelude. The ball eventually ends. The reality of the night fades into the gray, sobering dawn.
Reality sets back in.
And Pablo approaches Harry. He invites him to the ultimate, mind-bending destination, the Magic Theater.
We finally arrived at the Magic Theater. This is where the narrative completely leaves reality behind and gets truly hallucinatory.
It gets very trippy here.
Pablo takes Harry into a private room, offers him a strange drink, which is clearly a hallucinogen, and explains the rules of the theater. He tells Harry that the theater costs only your mind.
For madmen only.
Pablo holds up a small pocket mirror to Harry. Harry looks in and sees that miserable, agitated, divided wolf reflection staring back at him.
And Pablo makes him laugh at it. He tells Harry that humor is the key, and that true humor begins when a man ceases to take himself so seriously.
Which Harry has struggled with his whole life.
Exactly. With a laugh from Harry, the reflection in the mirror shatters, completely breaking the illusion of Harry's fixed identity. The man and the wolf are gone. Now, only the 1,000 souls remain.
Harry then enters this endless, horseshoe-shaped corridor with countless doors, each bearing a bizarre, shifting neon sign. The theater is a projection of his own subconscious.
It's his inner world manifested.
He enters the first door, marked for the Jolly Suicide, or the war between men and machines. And we need to go deep into this section because the most important event here is just wild.
This scene is vital for understanding Harry's repressed psyche. Harry enters a landscape at war. He meets his childhood friend, Gustav, who used to be a quiet theology professor, but is now a joyful, heavily armed sniper.
A sniper.
They hide in a tree above a highway and literally shoot at passing luxury cars, public officials, and wealthy industrialists.
It's wildly violent. They're shooting chauffeurs, overturning cars, burning machinery. But what does it actually mean? Why is this incredibly violent fantasy happening in his mind? Harry has always been a pacifist.
Because it is a psychological projection of his deepest, most suppressed anger. Let's use Carl Jung's theory of the shadow to explain this.
Oh, the shadow self.
Right. The shadow contains all the parts of ourselves that we repress because society deems them unacceptable. Anger, violence, selfishness. Think of the psyche like a pressure cooker.
Okay.
All his life, Harry has politely, intellectually hated overpopulation, industrialization, and the iron caste civilization that is destroying the soul of humanity. But he clamped down the valve on his anger. He played the role of the polite, suffering pacifist.
You never let it out.
But here in the Magic Theater, the pressure valve is released. That rage is unleashed without guilt. He is acting out his darkest destructive impulses against the machines he hates.
So it's a release.
It is a necessary catharsis. Before he can integrate the wolf or the savage parts of his nature, he must first acknowledge them without hiding behind a polite bourgeois facade.
That makes perfect sense. He has to feel the anger to let it go. After the catharsis of absolute destruction in the war scene, the theater forces Harry to look at how his identity is actually constructed. He goes back to the corridor and enters another room.
The chess room.
Yes, the most important event of this next phase. Here, he finds a man who looks very much like Pablo, sitting on the floor with a chessboard. But instead of traditional chess pieces, he uses the fragmented pieces of Harry's own self.
Little figurines representing his traits.
Exactly, his ages, his desires.
This is the lesson in what the text calls schizomania as an art form. The chess player demonstrates that Harry can build infinite versions of his life depending on how he arranges his inner pieces.
It's not set in stone.
He is not a fixed entity doomed to one tragic fate. He is a fluid collection of experiences, traits, and potentials that can be constantly rearranged into new games, new lives, new perspectives. If one arrangement brings despair, he simply needs to sweep the board and start a new game with the same pieces.
Then we get the door labeled The Taming of the Steppenwolf. And this stage show is incredibly disturbing. I recoiled reading it.
It is hard to read.
Harry watches a man who looks exactly like him brutally whip and dominate a starving, miserable wolf. He breaks the wolf's spirit, makes it do tricks, eat chocolate, and act like a submissive, humiliated dog.
But then the roles reverse.
Yes, the man submits, and the wolf becomes the master. The man is forced to strip naked, crawl on all fours, tear apart a live rabbit with his teeth, and drink its blood while the wolf watches approvingly.
It's horrifying.
It really is. But how does this help him? What is the psychological lesson here?
It visually demonstrates the sickness of trying to suppress one's nature rather than integrating it. The host in the theater shows Harry that by violently repressing the instinctual wolf side of himself for decades, Harry guarantees that when those instincts finally break free, they will be equally violent and degrading toward his human side.
It's a pendulum swinging.
Exactly. It's a cycle of mutual torture. The human degrades the animal, so the animal degrades the human. The only way out is integration, recognizing that both the intellect and the instinct are valid, necessary parts of the whole, and they must work together in harmony, not in a master-slave dynamic.
And stepping away from that nightmare, he enters a much more beautiful door marked, "All girls are yours."
Ah, the Garden of Love.
Yes, and here he relives his entire youth. He meets all the women he ever loved, desired, or was too afraid to approach: Rosa, Irmgard, Emma.
But the key difference is that he relives these moments with the wisdom, courage, and sensual confidence he has now, thanks to Hermione and Maria.
He gets a do-over.
He fulfills every missed opportunity. He experiences the love he ran away from.
And this sequence proves something truly beautiful about Harry's life. Harry always thought his life was poor, wretched, and empty, but the Magic Theater shows him that his inner world was actually incredibly rich.
It was full of potential.
It was overflowing with longing, romance, and poetry. The theater allows him to fully realize the wealth of his own experiences. It proves that his life, despite its profound pain and isolation, was princely and full of stars. He just lacked the courage to grasp them in reality.
Which brings us to the climax of the novel. All of Harry's experiences in the theater, all the dismantling of his ego, the catharsis of his anger, and the fulfillment of his desires lead him to his final, tragic, and revelatory test.
He opens a final door in the corridor, and inside he finds Hermione and Pablo.
The most important event of the climax.
And they are sleeping together, naked on a rug. They're exhausted from lovemaking, and Harry sees a fresh love bite on Hermione's breast.
And upon seeing this, in a sudden fit of absolute blind jealousy, Harry pulls out a knife he had in his pocket and stabs Hermione in the heart, killing her instantly.
The murder scene is described as eerie and beautiful, with her blood flowing over her pale skin, but it is fundamentally a failure on Harry's part.
A total failure of the test.
Yes. Harry uses the knife to fulfill Hermione's command, her dark wish to die by his hand. But he does it for the entirely wrong reason. He doesn't do it out of a detached, philosophical fulfillment of their pact. He doesn't do it as an act of transcendent mastery.
He does it out of base jealousy.
Exactly. Possessive, bourgeois jealousy.
Yeah.
He acts exactly like a spurned lover in a cheap, mundane melodrama. He let his ego take over in a place where the ego was supposed to be dead.
Exactly. He fails the test of the Magic Theater. He brings the heavy, serious, jealous reality of the outside world into the realm of the unconscious. And this is why he must be judged.
The trial.
Into the room walks Mozart, but not the historical, biographical Mozart. This is Mozart the immortal. He and Guthor represent the immortals in this universe, those great spirits who have transcended the tragedy of human existence.
They're above it all.
They possess an icy, star-bright laughter. They live in eternity, observing the frantic, tragic, self-important play of human life with divine humor.
And here we get what I believe is the most crucial metaphor in the entire text: Mozart's radio.
This is vital.
Mozart sets up a modern, cheap radio apparatus in the room and tunes it to a broadcast from Munich that is playing a concerto grosso by Handel.
And the sound that comes out of the speaker is absolutely awful. It's distorted by static, crackling, popping, sounding like a mixture of chewed rubber and mechanical noise.
Harry hates it.
Harry is horrified and enraged. He thinks it's a desecration of divine music by cheap, vulgar, modern technology. He wants to smash the radio.
But Mozart laughs, his icy, immortal laugh. He explains to Harry that this is exactly what life does to the divine spirit. The original majestic beauty of Handel's music is still there, existing perfectly somewhere, being transmitted behind the static.
The music is untouched.
The radio, the technology, the mundane world, the politicians, the wars, it can only distort the transmission. It cannot destroy the essence of the music itself. I want to really highlight this for you listening. Mozart tells Harry that he must learn to listen to the music and laugh at the static, rather than letting the static destroy his appreciation of the music.
That's the core message.
Harry takes the distortions of life, the bad politics, the vulgarity of the professor, his own physical pain too seriously. He focuses so hard on the static that he lets it ruin the beautiful song underneath.
It is the ultimate lesson in humor. The immortals don't ignore the tragedy of life. They transcend it through laughter. And so, the final judgment is handed down upon Harry Haller.
He thinks he's going to die.
Harry expects and almost desires to be condemned to death. He wants a grand, tragic execution for his crime of murder. He wants the melodrama. But Mozart denies him that satisfaction.
The judgment is brilliant. He is condemned not to death, but to life. He is suspended from the magic theater. He must go back out into the messy, lukewarm world.
He has to try again.
He must learn to use the chess pieces of his soul properly. He must stop taking himself, his intellect, and his suffering so incredibly seriously. And most importantly, he must finally learn to apprehend the humor of life, to learn the laughter of the immortals.
It is a journey from isolation to the beginnings of integration, from taking the world's flaws as a personal, agonizing insult, to viewing them with the detached, joyous laughter of eternity.
He's not quite there yet, though.
He hasn't reached the goal yet, no. But as the book ends, Harry notes that Pablo is waiting for him, and Mozart was waiting for him. He is finally willing to play the game again.
Wow. Let's summarize this incredible, exhausting journey from all our sources. Harry Haller, the miserable, divided Steppenwolf, learned that the unified self is a delusion.
A total trap.
He learned that dividing the world into high art and base instinct, into man and wolf, is a deadly trap that leads to mutual torture. And he learned that the only way to survive the tragedy and the static of existence is through the transcendent power of humor.
By embracing the thousand souls within him.
Yes, and by learning to laugh at the cosmic joke of life rather than fighting it. I want to leave you with a final reflection, building on that brilliant radio analogy from Mozart. Think about your own daily frustrations.
The little things that drive us crazy.
The annoying bumper-to-bumper commute, the bureaucratic red tape at your job that makes no sense, the absolute deafening superficial noise of social media. What if all of that is just the static of the radio?
What if you just turn it out?
What if tomorrow, instead of getting angry at the static, instead of letting it ruin your mood, you actively chose to listen through it? To hear the grand, eternal music of existence playing underneath the noise?
Right.
Could you learn to laugh at the distortion instead of letting it ruin your day?
Thank you for tuning in to DFC Books.